Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly. In the Impact segment tonight, will there be a war in Syria? As you may know, the tyrant Assad, who runs that country, fighting a civil war to keep power, aided by Russia. This week, Assad used poison gas, allegedly, to kill men, women, and children. At least 86 people have died. That prompted this from the U.S. ambassador to the UN.
When the United Nations consistently fails in its duty to act collectively, there are times in the life of states that we are compelled to take our own action. For the sake of the victims, I hope the rest of the Council is finally willing to do the same.
Joining us now from Washington, Christopher Harmer, Senior Naval Analyst at the Institute for the Study of War. And from Boston, Fox News military analyst Colonel David Hunt, author of the new book, Without Mercy. So, Colonel Hunt, what do you think is going to happen here?
What I think is going to happen is the Secretary of Defense is going to meet this weekend, talk to the President, and ask or tell him there's two options, a strategic or a tactical. What I mean is, one is wipe the entire Air Force off the map of Assad's air, if we are sure that Assad did this, or a smaller tactical strike in which you just take out airfields or a couple of planes. It sounds to me like we are laying the groundwork from the ambassador, as you just showed, and from Tillerson, who's already talked, and from the President to do something. The issue is going to be, though, we've got U.S. forces already on the ground. If we do this against Assad, there are definitely going to be consequences and put U.S. forces who are already deep inside Syria at risk.
There's about 1,000 U.S. troops, I understand, there. But when you say they're going to put them at risk, how? I mean, the bombs aren't going to fall on them. I mean, they're going to be targeted at the Air Force, which isn't that big, by the way. I estimate it would take 1 day for U.S. forces to knock out the Syrian Air Force, right?
Okay. The U.S. forces on the ground, that has been coordinated with Assad's forces and the Russians. We just didn't pop in with Rangers, 82nd Airborne, and Marines. That's coordinated. If we bomb Assad for this reason, and by the way, he's been killing his own kids for years.
Right.
But if we do this, the U.S. forces lose that coordination effort, and it puts them in danger. They're already in the middle of 6 countries that are at war in the middle of Syria. It's a very dangerous place to begin with. This will heighten it, and that's got to be a consideration.
All right, Mr. Harmer, do you see it that way?
No, not at all. I don't see any heightened risk to U.S. forces already in theater. They're already in country. They're already fighting. The people that they are fighting against are overwhelmingly ISIS and al-Qaeda. ISIS and al-Qaeda are not the targets of this potential strike. The targets of this potential strike are the ability of the Assad regime to deliver chemical weapons, specifically his Air Force. So I think in a relatively short period of time, 1 night, maybe 2, we could destroy the entirety of the Syrian Air Force. Prior to the war, they were fairly big, fairly capable. After 6 years of civil war, the Syrian Air Force has been attrited fairly significantly. I just don't think this is this heavy of a lift. Now, coming from a Marine Corps infantry background, I'm certainly sympathetic to the men on the ground. I don't want to place them in any further risk. I don't see that a strike against the Syrian Air Force places U.S. forces already in country.
Colonel Hunt's point is this, that if Assad is allowing transit, for example, of U.S. forces from Iraq into his country, not impeding that, that's the deal, okay, that he wouldn't do that anymore. And that it would be more difficult, that his troops might even open fire on our troops if they found them. So certainly Assad's not going to be happy that the U.S. is bombing his airfield. So conceivably that could happen, not?
Yeah, certainly anything's conceivable. I can't imagine, however, that Bashar Assad, with an extraordinarily small and shrinking army that's suffering severely from both attrition and defections, is going to escalate against the United States of America.
Well, it's a gamble now. Now, if their military action does launch, Colonel Hunt, Russian planes are there too, right? Aren't Russian planes there?
There's not only Russian planes, there's Russian on the ground. And by the way, as my friends should know, there's a lot more than 1,000 soldiers in the middle of Syria. We got 6,000 in Mosul. The point I'm trying to make is it's already bad enough where there are 6 different armies and 10 terrorist organizations in the middle of this. And it's tenuous for the U.S. soldiers at point. And bombs, although these can be surgical, can be rather indiscriminate. And again, how about we kill a couple of Russians or hit a Russian aircraft.
So you'd have to let Russia know ahead of time what was going to happen.
Exactly.
But if they don't do anything, Colonel
know.
Hunt, if President Trump doesn't do anything, he becomes like President Obama. They let the gas go. Assad has a history of it. He had he said he destroyed his cache of outlawed gas weapons. That's not true. All Israeli intel and U.S. intel know that. So if we let it go, then Trump looks weak. He looks like Obama, no?
Now, I understand how the politics of this could work. I'm also not convinced that this is Assad. Why would he do this? This sounds to me more like rebels. This stuff was done in Sarajevo. However, if this turns out to be them, understand that we're changing the nature of the game, and that is unpredictable. Again, Turkey's got 2 armies in there and everybody else.
I don't think you can stand by.
You got to consider it.
Yeah, I don't think you can stand by and do nothing. I don't know if bombing is the right thing to do, but I think you have to do something. We'll give you the last word, Mr. Harmer. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the days of collateral damage are significantly reduced. We're talking about Tomahawk cruise missiles that have a range of 1,000 nautical miles and an accuracy within 1 meter, and we're talking about a 98-99% success ratio in there. I just don't see how U.S. forces are placed at risk by this. I don't see how Russian forces are placed at risk by this. The other thing regarding who actually conducted this attack, we've got hundreds of survivors that said this attack was conducted by fixed-wing aircraft. None of the rebels have fixed-wing aircraft. The idea that this is a false flag operation simply is not supported by the facts.
All right, gentlemen, good discussion. We appreciate it.